Good morning and welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. We are back from summer vacation. Labor Day is in the rearview mirror and we're ready to get down to business again. We're joined this morning by former state senator and mayor of Portland, Democrat Ethan Strimling, and former Republican state senator Phil Harriman. Gentlemen, hope you had a good summer.
We did. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. You look like you're relaxed, tanned, although I think you worked most of the summer, unlike the two of us.
Well, we don't need to get into that. Let's begin. Paul LePage is ready to formally kick off his campaign to return to the Blaine House in just a couple weeks. Handicap the race for us, Ethan. How vulnerable is Janet Mills to a LePage campaign or even a primary challenge from another Democrat?
Yeah, well, some recent polling that came out, full disclosure, Swing Hard, Turn Left, an organization I'm part of, commissioned, shows that Janet against LePage is up about 5 points. That seems pretty consistent with most polling. She's below 50%, so certainly not as strong as a lot of Democrats would like to see. A primary challenge is always tough for sure, but those vetoes that she took last year, what the polls showed, her veto of the prescription drug bill, her veto of the bill to incentivize Maine workers, all of these bills banning pesticides have made her much more vulnerable than she should be. Not just a majority of Democrats don't like those bills, a majority of Maine people don't like them. So while I don't know if anybody would challenge her in a primary, it just weakens her base a little bit. Democratic support is softer than it should be. She needs to solidify that.
Well, I think it's always the incumbent's race to lose. And for those who believe that, the government's not doing enough, they probably feel that Janet Mills is the one they want to vote for. But I think if Paul LePage can demonstrate that he has put his outbursts, so to speak, or his bouts of anger that spills out into the media behind him and demonstrate that he's going to focus on the policies that he championed as governor, and he's going to be more of a diplomat than a firebrand, I think Janet Mills has got a very difficult road ahead.
Just one quick thing that, and part of it is, although Janet's support among Democrats may be soft, Paul LePage is the great uniter for Democrats. So they will come home and do everything possible to defeat him. So assuming she's the candidate, which it looks most likely she will be, have no fear. Democrats are going to be solidly united.
Now we've got another blast from the past. Bruce Poliquin running to try to reclaim the 2nd District congressional seat that he lost to the current incumbent, Democrat Jared Golden. Phil, where are the fresh faces for the Maine Republican Party?
Yeah, there was, efforts by some in the legislature to step into that race against Jared Golden, but as probably happens in the Democrat circle as well, the Republicans recognize that someone who's been there before, Bruce Poliquin in this case, has decided that he wants back in. The party faithful are going to recognize that he has served them and he's willing to try it again. So, I think Bruce Poliquin is going to have to demonstrate that he can take a fresh approach to things with the lens of history, having been out of office for several years. And rest assured, there are plenty of Republicans coming up through the city councils and the legislatures in the years ahead who will blossom for sure.
Ethan?
Yeah, you're a rock and roll aficionado, Pat. So you know the Who album in which they sing "Here Comes the New Boss," same as the old boss. That seems to be the philosophy of the Republican Party. 2 years ago, 4 brand new faces running in primary for the 2nd congressional seat, the governor's race. There were 4 or 5 brand new Republican faces, just all wiped off the face of the earth by these big name behemoths sort of coming back in. Paul LePage clearing the field, Bruce Poliquin clearing the field. It's a clear contrast for the electorate. It is go backwards or continue forward. And I don't think that bodes well. Yes, good name recognition. Yes, they come to the table stronger than perhaps some others. But boy, how easy to frame this is, do you want to go backwards or do you want to go forward?
In the fight against the coronavirus, President Biden has unveiled new regulations designed to increase the vaccination rate, including federal workers, people with companies of more than 100 employees, and all healthcare workers will have to be vaccinated. Ethan, is this the right approach at the right time?
Yes, it is. You know what Joe Biden has in common with George Washington, other than the fact that they're both president of the United States? They both have had federal vaccine mandates put into place. General Washington, President Washington, required that all of our troops be vaccinated against smallpox. Biden's doing the same thing. This is the right thing for the country. It's the right thing for our health. There have been vaccine mandates in place, whether it's for polio or diphtheria or any myriad of different diseases to make sure that kids don't go into schools, chickenpox. This is normal operating procedure for a country that wants to be healthy, and good for Joe Biden for doing it.
Phil?
I didn't know that Joe Biden and George Washington served together in leadership.
I thought you were there, buddy.
I think the goal that they're trying to reach is admirable. Most people in America have seen the value and the wisdom of getting the vaccination, but the administration is muddling this. They cannot come across with a clear message that's convincing that whether you should wear a mask or not, some states you have to, others you don't. Some buildings you have to wear a mask, others you don't. I think they've lost the credibility amongst the people who are most vulnerable, who should get vaccinated, because they haven't convinced them that they know exactly how to attack this virus. So my hope is that if you haven't been vaccinated, that you choose to do so.
And Phil, there's been some pushback against Governor Mills' mandate for healthcare workers to get vaccinated. A lot of rallies against that, sometimes pretty ugly. Does this get Governor Mills off the hook? Now it's a federal thing.
Well, perhaps, but to me, it's not whether it's the state government or the federal government. It's about what is going to work for America. And having these protests just as another indication, particularly by healthcare workers who are saying, you know what, I'm not convinced the virus is in my best interest, but don't take away my job. Don't take away my career. We got to find a way to make this work.
Ethan, what do you think? Does this help Janet Mills now that the president has stepped in?
Sure. I think we're seeing this at all levels of government. The city of Portland, where I live, they're looking at a mask mandate. The school board actually was just looking at a vaccine mandate for school workers. They didn't pass it, but I think now with Joe Biden's, they might even revisit that. I think it absolutely gives cover, which is what it should do. But I think that Janet has done a good job on the COVID front, no doubt about it. But this is a very important step forward.
The U.S. Supreme Court refused to block restrictive Texas abortion law. Is this the beginning of the end of Roe versus Wade? And does Senator Susan Collins own a piece of that if it happens, given the judges she helped put on the Supreme Court? Phil?
It is not the end of Roe versus Wade. You will see a strong effort either in Texas and in Washington to assure that women's reproductive rights are their right to decide, not someone else. I don't see this as the end of Roe versus Wade. And I also don't think this is a stain, so to speak, on Susan Collins' support of the Supreme Court nominees. And, if you go back through her career in the United States Senate, she has supported Republican and Democrat presidential nominees. I don't think this is going to affect her.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to affect her, but certainly she bears responsibility. And make no mistake, if the Texas law remains in effect and the Supreme Court continues to allow it to be in effect, then Roe v. Wade is effectively abolished for all the states around this nation that are going to put this private right to sue people who get an abortion and sort of working their way around their constitutional protection. This will devastate women's reproductive rights all over the country. We're already seeing states who are trying to replicate this law. And if you basically put into place that 6 weeks is the limit, that is clearly in violation of Roe v. Wade. That is a very different precedent. Roe v. Wade, which of course gave the first trimester. This is very problematic. And Susan Collins cast the deciding vote for Kavanaugh, and not only cast it, but gave a speech about how Kavanaugh would protect the precedent of Roe v. Wade. This is clearly not in line with what she thought was going to happen.
President Biden has seen poll numbers take a dive in the wake of the Afghan exodus, yet most Americans support the withdrawal. They just don't care for the way it was carried out. Certainly wasn't pleasant to watch for anyone. How problematic are these numbers for Democrats, Ethan?
I don't actually think they're going to be very problematic. I mean, look at, sadly, in some ways, how fast this has left the headlines. The last day we were out, there were maybe a couple more stories, and there's been virtually no press coverage anymore about what's going on in Afghanistan, and we're only a week past when we fully evacuated. So I think this is going to start to move out of people's minds more quickly. This is something the American people wanted, both Democrats and Republicans. Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they both bear responsibility for ending this war, how this war ended. It certainly didn't end as well as we would have liked, but there were some really important milestones in terms of the number of people evacuated. But most importantly, our troops are home. We're out of this endless war. There was no future for us there. So I think in the end, people will be happier that we're out than if we had still been there.
Phil, does this stay a political issue?
Oh, I most certainly does. The people who cross paths with me in my daily life, who watch the Political Brew, are making a point to single out this very issue. And I think the distinction, Pat, is that the decision to remove ourselves from Afghanistan was acceptable, the way in which it was done. And it still continues several weeks later, where we learn that our military assets are now in the hands of people who want to destroy America, where we have Americans that are still left behind, where Pakistan is now putting pressure on us because of their nuclear capabilities. Americans, forget whether you're a Democrat or Republican, Americans don't like the idea that we've left people behind and that people who supported us, who we promised to care for, are now in harm's way. And I do think that's going to linger and will probably bear out in the midterm elections.
In Washington, the Democrats are getting busy trying to write a $3.5 trillion social infrastructure plan, something they hope to pass without needing Republican support. But Phil, there's plenty of dissension among Democrats themselves. What do you make of how this plays out?
Well, and as there should be, this is on top of, Pat, a $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill that passed with Republican support. This notion that now we got to go spend another $3.5 trillion, I don't think is going to set well with the American public. And as you indicate, there are some Democrats in the House and in the Senate who feel this is going too far, and they're going to have ultimately a lot of influence on what this final package looks like.
Ethan, how do you see it?
You just asked about the impact of Afghanistan on the midterms. This issue, I think, is going to have a much bigger impact on the midterms if Democrats can get this done. And understand, when we say 3.5 trillion, it feels nebulous. What does that mean? That means expanding healthcare for people, providing dental coverage, eyesight coverage, making sure that we have universal pre-K, making sure that people are able to send their kids to childcare for the next 10 years as opposed to just the next year from the original bill. These are really important initiatives that will impact Americans' lives across the spectrum. Working class Americans, low income Americans who desperately need this help. This is the kind of bill that if Democrats can get it done, it will have a much bigger impact on the midterms because people will see Democrats fighting for them. Is there some dissension among Democrats? Of course they are. I live with Democrats every day of the week, and we have lots of opinions, but hopefully in the end can craft something that's really going to work for people.
Well, let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Ethan, we'll start with you.
Well, my winner, I'm going to give it to the Honorable Phil Harriman on this. He was one of the only and the first Republican leader in the state to be able to call out some Republican leaders who were comparing mask mandates and whatnot to Holocaust murderers and to the Holocaust itself. So Phil had the courage to stand up. I know Senator Susan Collins followed him. So Phil, you got that one this week. Loser of this week. Look, this weekend was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We talked about Afghanistan. We haven't talked about Iraq. While it is a good thing that we're home, it's hard to see either of those wars as anything but distractions. So those, for me, are the losers, but I'm glad they're behind us.
And Phil?
Well, I am flattered that Ethan named a Republican a winner. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a new spirit for our new season.
My loser this week is the Biden administration's continue to leave us in an embarrassing situation as the way we have exited Afghanistan. My winner of the week is the Rue Institute that is going to transform the city skyline in Portland, not only from an environmental point of view, but from an entrepreneurial technology point of view. This is a game changer for the state of Maine, and the Rue Institute is my winner this week.
But we will miss the B&M Bean Factory. Come
Yes,
on. Everybody loves the Bean Factory.
We will.
Phil Harriman, Ethan Sterling, thanks for being with us. Glad you could join us as well. We'll see you next time. News Center Maine is back after this.